Hi, I'm Nisha DeGaring, host of Good Things Utah, and I've been a longtime supporter of Todd's Belief Cast. I hope you find inspiration in the courageous stories shared by the amazing people Todd features on his show. The guests serve as shoulders for us to stand on, allowing us to see a little further and cultivate belief in oneself. Remember, you have the dignity and power to change. I encourage you to keep striving and believing in yourself. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires Belief Cast. As always, thank you for tuning in week after week. You guys have made this go on a level that I can't even imagine, and I definitely don't take the credit for it. I take the credit for these amazing people I bring on who are inspiring to us and show us that we can overcome some amazing difficulties and push forward. It really blows me away, the power of the human spirit. And I really think people are astonishing. And today's going to be no different. Before I get there, I want to give a shout out to my sponsors, Craig Swap and Associates, Elevate Wellness and Aesthetics, Maury Nutrition, Wasatch Recovery, Thread Wallets. And then the music you heard at the beginning and at the end of this podcast is by my good friend Paul Cardall. He's an award-winning pianist. He's got 25 million active listeners every month. And so, Paul, thank you for letting us use your amazing music. And so today we are joined with Vance Walker. He is the American Ninja Warrior champion. He won $1 million. He's at 18 years old. He beat out Daniel Gill by just maybe a little under 2 seconds. An amazing feat. I've watched it several times, and every time I watch it, man, the intensity of that rope climb. Describe to us what that was like, climbing that rope and realizing once you won the $1 million.
Yeah, so stage 4, the 80-foot rope climb in 30 seconds, that is, for most people, the hardest stage. That is basically impossible. Only 5 people have ever been able to do it. Only 3 people have ever won the $1 million. And that is a very difficult climb. For me, I've always been very good at the pull strength. I've always been very good at the quick movements, like things like the salmon ladder, things like the rope. I've always been good at that explosive kind of movement. And so I've always been very good at the rope climb. A bunch of people have gotten there and not been able to get up, and luckily I've been blessed with those quick muscles. And it's a very difficult thing to do, but I've always trained hard at it. I've always done pretty well at it. I would like to think that I'm one of the best at it, and it came down to a couple seconds. So
you definitely are the best right now. I noticed when you started the rope climb, you used just your arms at the very beginning.
Yes.
And then got to a certain point, and then you added the legs. Was that a technique that you had practiced, or were you just in the moment and just started going as fast as you could?
A little bit of both. I haven't trained a bunch of rope. Like I said, always been naturally good at the pull strength from doing just ninja in general. So I haven't trained a bunch of specifically B rope. But yeah, in the training, I did do exactly that. The first 20, 25 feet with no legs, just because it makes it a tiny bit faster. So with most people, you get to about 60 feet, and that's when you start really slowing down. That's when you get really tired. But for me, I don't really feel that exhaustion until about 80 feet. So I can have that little bit of extra quick bursts. So if you've watched everybody on stage 4, you see a lot of people get to 60 super fast. And you're like, oh, they're for sure going to get to the top. And then they end up being 10 seconds too slow, because that last 20 feet, it slows you down so much. So luckily, since I have until about 80 where I start getting tired, I can spend a little bit of time at the beginning just going all out, going as fast as I possibly can.
Yeah, wow. Truly amazing. I've tried climbing a rope, and for those who have never climbed a rope, I'm telling you, it's no joke. It's not easy to do. It's probably one of the hardest things out there. So very impressive. We're going to talk more about that, but I want to go back early on in your life. I know that when you were, I think it was at 18 months that you were diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and you were told that you probably will never walk again. So tell us about that. Tell us about that diagnosis, and tell us kind of how that shaped you as you were growing up as a child. Mm-hmm. Talk about how challenging that was for you.
Yeah, so I think it was at 17 weeks my mom went into labor, and she was in the hospital for 4 months with me.
Oh, wow.
And I was born about a month premature, which for how long she was in labor was amazing that I was able to stay in that long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was born a month premature, and right before I turned 18 months old, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, spastic diplegia in my legs, where it's my muscles are super tight, they're very twitchy, and I am just not flexible at all in my legs. My whole entire body is tight, but especially my legs, I have to stretch them for hours a day even to be able to walk normally, especially to be able to
Wow.
do the things that I'm doing. And yeah, I had to wear braces on my legs until I was about 7 years old. It was in the first grade where I was finally able to take those off. And
Wow.
when I originally got the diagnosis, I was told that I would never be able to take the braces off. I was told that it was a lifelong thing. I would never be able to walk without those braces stretching my legs because I started walking with my toes curled under my feet, like not just on my tippy toes, but my toes were curled
Oh,
under. So
wow.
I was on the tops of my feet when I was walking,
Dang.
and I those braces basically just kept it that stretched it constantly. When I fell asleep, it would pull it even tighter because I wasn't there to resist it. And yeah, it basically made me able to walk normally, and I was told that I would never be able to walk without those. And
Wow.
when I turned about 7 years old, I was able to take that control into my own hands. I was able to take responsibility, and I had that choice where I could either wear the braces for the rest of my life and guarantee that I would be able to walk, but not without them, or start doing all the stretching on my own, take that responsibility in my own hands, and have a chance at being able to walk without them. But if I
Yeah.
didn't do it right, it would get even worse because this is something that the damage is already done.
Yeah.
It's in the brain. It's cerebral palsy, so it's your
Yeah.
brain basically telling your muscles not to stretch when your bones stretch, and
Mm.
not to get looser. It keeps them engaged. And so the damage is already done. It can't get better, but I can prevent it from getting worse. So when I took that control in my own hands, it was okay, do all these stretches and possibly be able to walk without them, or have the chance at it getting worse and guaranteeing that I might never be able to walk at all. So
Wow.
it was hard.
That's amazing. I would imagine, you're 7 years old when you said you took those braces off, I love how you keep saying, I took responsibility for my life.
Mhm.
I would imagine, though, you had some parents in your life that were guiding you through
Yeah.
this because you're seven, man. I can't imagine having that mindset as a 7-year-old, right?
Mhm.
Talk about talk about the influence of your parents and kind of how they also shaped who you are today, even.
Yeah, I say it was me taking responsibility when I was 7, but it was really my mom.
Right?
Yeah, from day one when I had the braces and I wasn't able to walk, she had a backpack that I don't know how long she kept me on there, but for a very long time she would keep me on her back. She would walk with me on her back constantly.
Oh
And
man.
that's because I wasn't able to walk on my own. So she would always carry me on her back. And when we would go to get the braces fitted, the doctors would tighten it a certain amount and be like, okay, this is how tight you want them to be able to keep it from getting worse. And we would get home, she would get her own tool, make it a little bit tighter. And she just did all this stuff to make sure
Yeah.
that I really had a shot. And
Wow.
we would get home, and when I turned 7 and took the braces off, she would start stretching and she would be like, okay, does it hurt? I would be like, yes. She would
Yeah.
push it even farther. She would be like, okay, if it's hurting, that's good. I'm going to go even farther than this. And she always she had the mindset of whatever it takes. We're not going to stop until you have the chance to be able to do this. We heard you're never going to be able to walk. We were like, we're not taking that as an answer. We're going to push even harder than what they're
Wow.
telling us to do and make sure that this is a possibility. She always wanted me to be able to do the sports, and even if I didn't want to, even if I couldn't be the best like I am today, even if I didn't have a shot at being good at something, she wanted me to just have those opportunities, have the chance to try,
Yeah.
and not be limited. And yeah,
Wow.
she gave me that mindset of whatever it takes. If it hurts, we're going to push a little bit farther. If like all of that, just whatever it takes, we're not going to stop until we get there. Even if the braces are only supposed to be tightened this much, we're going to tighten them a little bit more. We're going to push it a little bit farther. We're going to do that little bit of extra work to be able to have those opportunities. So I was definitely formed by my mom in that aspect.
Wow. Well, shout out to your mom, man. That's amazing, and
Yeah.
how blessed you were to have her in that position to help you. Did you find yourself younger? Were at that age? Were you? My mind goes to like, I think people would assume, oh man, he had to have been depressed or sad, or, I mean, did you ever feel like, man, this isn't going to work out? And did you ever feel like,
Mhm.
you're going to give up, or, what was the mindset like for you just as you're going through this process of stretching and growing and pushing yourself?
That is a good question. There were a bunch of times throughout my life where I thought that being good at something wasn't really possible, but I never had that give up attitude. I always thought, okay, maybe this sport won't work. I'll go try another one. But I was never like, okay, there's nothing that I there's nothing that I can be good at. So I've never been willing to give up, but I've definitely had like I tried a bunch of sports growing up. I tried soccer, I think was the first one that I did. And to hit the
Yeah.
ball, you had to kind of twist your leg out and hit it with the inside of your foot.
Yeah.
And part of the tightness is it pulls your legs in. Like if you see
Oh.
people with really bad cerebral palsy, they're like their hips and knees are turned in.
Mm.
And I couldn't twist my leg out to be able to hit the ball with the inside of my foot. So I wasn't able to do soccer. And like with
Okay.
football, I was really good because I was doing football when I was about 6 years old and or about 7 years old. So it was like right when I got the braces off. And I was really fast because my muscles are tight and twitchy, so I'm able to have like
Yeah.
those quick movements. So I'm really fast. I was a good wide receiver. I was making a bunch of touchdowns, but I couldn't stay on the field for most of the game because my legs are already so tight. When I'm doing all these activities for that long, it makes it even worse. I like start cramping
Oh,
and can't really like if I'm
okay.
standing up for most of the day, my legs will be cramping when I'm trying to go to sleep. It'll sometimes get to the point where I can't stand up, I can't walk.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so I've always like I tried a bunch of different sports growing up, but there was always one thing that kept me from being good at it. But I would be like, okay, I'm gonna either keep working at this. Like football, I loved football. I was gonna keep doing it. But I like with soccer, I was like, okay, well, I can't do this. I'm gonna go try football. Like I'm gonna go try this other sport. And I probably would have stuck with football even though I wasn't great at it, just because I always loved it. My dad always loved football growing up, so I like grew
Yeah.
up watching it. But about 2 years after, I think 2.5 years after I started playing football, when I turned 10, we moved to Atlanta, and that's when I went to the ninja gym for the first time. And
Oh, okay.
I was immediately like, okay, I'm dropping all the other sports. This is what I want to do. So yeah, I it was always difficult, especially in school, because I was always singled out. I was always different. I was always the kid with braces. I was always different than everybody
Yeah.
else. And I think that's where the hard part came in. It wasn't like necessarily in the sports because I always knew, okay, I can go try something else. I can keep working at this. I was never willing to give up. I was never willing to take no for an answer. But in school, I was different. Like I couldn't change the fact that I was the kid with braces. I couldn't change the fact that everybody else was good at sports and I wasn't.
Yeah.
Like that was definitely the hard part. Was in school I was always bullied, and for
Dang.
most of my life I felt like I was like never really able to fit in with anybody. And until I started being good at a sport, started making these friends. The ninja community is very special. We're all super close, even though we're all competing against each other. Like only one person can win $1 million. Like
Yeah.
the community is just so tight, and up until I found that, it was definitely very difficult to find those friends and to really fit in. So I think that's definitely where the hard part came in.
Yeah, when you say that you guys are a tight family, I totally agree. After interviewing a few other ninjas, just they're saying the same thing you are, and they also mentioned just how these ninja gyms out there is what that got them started as well, and it's
Mhm.
amazing the influence these gyms are having on these young kids, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's insane. They're popping up everywhere now.
they really are, and how cool is that? Where this show turns into this sport, and now it's like taking over the world, if you will, and here you are a part of it, and the champ, and won the $1 million, and all
Yeah.
that amazing stuff. But it's also opened up a bunch of other things for you. I know, you've been doing some motivational speaking, right?
Hmm.
And I know a lot of times on the stage, you're talking about, the power of thoughts, and I'm a big believer on how our thoughts are everything. And tell us a little bit about that, and how did you get to that point where you understood how powerful your mind is? Because here you are, maybe physically limited at times,
Hmm.
but yet your mind, man, I'm telling you, your mind is powerful. How did you get that? What kind of training did you do to strengthen that mind and your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I don't know what specific point I really had that shift into knowing that this is all a mindset game. But I think just growing up like with that attitude from my mom of whatever it takes, I think that's what really gave it to me because there wasn't like I didn't have an option. It was either give up, accept the limits, accept that you'll never be able to do these things, or put that extra work in to be able to do it. I didn't really have a choice, and I wasn't willing to sit there and let things
Yeah.
happen. I wasn't willing to, like, I could have sat down, taken my disability checks for the rest of my life, and just accepted my life, sat down,
Yeah.
watched TV all day. But that's just not something that I was willing to do, not something that I want to do. I want to achieve success. I want to be the best at something. I want to do the most that I can with my life, and I don't want to sit down and let life happen to me. I want to make something happen. And I
Wow,
think
I love that.
just from that young age, like, my mom gave me that mindset of whatever it takes, and it's
Yeah.
always been a mindset game rather than what am I physically capable of, because I was told that I wasn't physically capable of walking, and now my first season on Ninja Warrior, I got up the mega wall for
Yeah.
$10,000, and now I've won the show,
Yeah.
and that's a whole lot more than walking. So I think
Right.
I've always had that mindset, but
Yeah.
there were definitely times where that's hard to stick to. Like, there's been times, especially after season 14, the season before I won. I went into qualifiers the year before. I had fallen on the second to last obstacle of stage 3, so I was one obstacle away from climbing for $1 million, and I was even better at the rope that season than I was in season 15. So I was like, I probably would have won the $1 million if I just got past that obstacle.
Oh yeah.
And I came back from that season. That was the season that I got the mega wall too. So I had two perfect seasons of junior. I won both seasons of the kids show. Didn't lose a single race. Had that
Oh,
almost
wow.
perfect season in season 13. And then
Amazing.
coming into season 14, I fell on the qualifiers. I was like, okay, that was a technical obstacle. It's one where you have the bar in your hands and you have to place it perfectly. Like, I
Yeah.
just missed a bar placement. I'm not the best at that. I'll come back and hit the next buzzer. And then I fell on the semifinals course, and I was like, okay, this is a little weird. I'm not used to falling, but
Right.
I'll come back in. I'll come back in stage 1. I cleared that one on my first try last year, and I'll just clear that course. And then I got to stage 1, and I slid out of the jumping spider. I was in the water, and I was like, okay, that's a little weird. I feel like I'm the strongest I've ever been right now. I trained the hardest I ever have for this year, and
Yeah.
I fell on every single course, and
Wow.
that was very, very disheartening. It's like that took a lot of motivation away. I ended up moving back home for, I think, like 3 months, and just like contemplating if I wanted to come back or not, contemplating if I could come back or not, because I was the strongest that I'd ever been. I felt like, okay, if I was that close to winning last year, it's guaranteed for me this year, right? Because I'm that much
Yeah.
stronger.
Yeah.
And I didn't even come close. So I was like, okay, well, strength has nothing to do with how you perform in this sport. So yeah, like, it's a very weird thing to balance, because obviously Ninja Warrior is the most physical sport that there is. It's the most physically demanding sport there is. It's the hardest sport that there is.
Yeah.
But strength really has nothing to do with the success.
Yeah.
I think season 14, I think I was even stronger that season than I was in season 15. And I didn't come close. And in season 15,
Wow.
I won. So it's like, it's a very weird thing to balance. And right after season 13, my gym that I had trained at for my whole entire career shut down. And for season 14, I actually moved in with my grandparents in Houston. So I went from Atlanta to Houston, 4 states away, to be able to train for that season. And I
Jeez.
was actually training with Daniel for that season, because I was training at the same gym that he trained at.
Oh yeah. Right on.
And I felt the strongest I had ever been. But I was already destroyed from my gym shutting down, from losing all those friends that I had spent my whole entire career with. Those friends that
Yeah.
they were the first real friends that I had too, because that was
Yeah.
my whole entire time that I lived in Texas. I was the kid with braces, and then I moved away from that, started doing ninja while I was in Atlanta. Those were my first real friends, the first people I was really tight with. And I lost all of that, started training in Houston, and I was like, okay, this is a fresh start. I'm gonna keep training. I'm gonna make sure that if I get to stage 3, there's no way that I fall on it. And then I
Uh-huh.
didn't even come close. And then coming into season 15, I moved down to Tampa. I moved down to a gym here with a nice Christian family. They run the gym, and I just completely switched my environment, and I made it all about that mental side,
Mm.
because I grew up with that never give up attitude. But in season 14, obviously that mindset wasn't there. I felt like I had lost everything. And then after season 14, especially, I was like, okay, well, now I've lost everything and I suck at the show now. So I'm the strongest I've ever been, and I still can't do well. So I really had to shift my mindset. And coming into season 15, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to a gym that I know I'm comfortable at. It's very close in style to the gym that I was training at in Atlanta. And also, I've been friends with this family for a long time. I know that it's a
Yeah.
good environment,
Yeah.
and I'm going to come into the season with this shift, with the shift in environment and this shift in mindset of, okay, last year I felt like, okay, my gym shut down. I moved to Houston. I'm here to win. Like, I came that close last year. I'm the strongest I've
Yeah.
ever been. Like, this is the year that I come and do it. And that was like, in season 13, I was enjoying it. I was like, this is my first time on the show. Like, originally the age limit was 21. I was 16. So I was like, okay,
Wow.
this is awesome. I get to compete
Yeah.
on the show. And my mindset was, okay, I'm enjoying this. And then
Yeah.
season 14, my mindset was, I'm going to win. I'm here to win. My only reason for being here is to win.
Wow.
And I didn't come close. So coming into season 15, I made that shift in my mindset, like, okay, I'm going to have that mindset of, oh, I love being here again. I'm going to have that mindset of, oh, I'm here to enjoy it. I'm here because I love the show. Like, this has been my dream since I was 10 years old. I'm going to enjoy being here. And I think that shift in mindset is really what got me to the top in season 15. I think I
Yeah.
was still pretty dang strong, as it showed. I was still capable of winning, but I
Right.
wasn't as strong as I was the year before. I think season 14 was where I was at my strongest.
Mm.
And that's the season that I did my worst. So I think the mindset has a huge play in how you do, because my mindset was the weakest it ever was that season. My strength was the best it ever was, and I did my worst. In season 15, my mindset was the strongest it's ever been. I was probably around my season 13 strength, so it wasn't the weakest that I've ever been. I think season 16 is probably the weakest that I've ever been, and we'll see how that one plays out soon. But
Yeah.
I think my mindset, especially for season 16, like season 15 was the best it's ever been. I think this coming season, season 16, it was even better because I was coming off of that win. I was enjoying
Yeah.
it even more. Like, you
Yeah.
can tell in my interviews when they interview me after all the courses, you can tell I'm just having fun with it.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that plays out. But I think that mindset shift has been so helpful, and we'll see if I can stick
Yeah.
with enjoying it, especially after this next season. We'll see how
Sure.
that plays out. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
mindset is so much more important in this sport than people realize.
Wow. Very well said. Thank you for sharing that. That was really powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, we talked about you speaking a lot. You spoke at the Keller Williams Family Reunion
Yes.
Conference, and you shared the stage of the likes of Mel Robbins and Tony Robbins.
Mhm.
And what
Yeah.
was that like? Tell us a little bit about that. What was that like, sharing the stage with them, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, that was insane. That was my first ever speaking engagement. That was my first ever thing outside of the show. Like,
Yeah.
I have all these interviews through the show, but that was my first, that was my first solo venture. That was my first speaking engagement too. I had never like spoken to an audience live. I'd done it through interviews and stuff, but
Yeah.
never like that. And to do it with a company as big as Keller Williams and an event
Right.
that big where Tony Robbins is the main speaker, that was insane. And I was so glad to have the team that I have too. Like, my mom has been my manager for a long time. She's arranged all of my stuff. She's arranged all of my travel, like figured out all of my stuff. And she has been amazing. And the Keller Williams team was also amazing. They had Jason Abrams. He was the person interviewing me, and he was
Oh,
amazing. We had many Zoom calls before. We had like figured out what the questions were going to be. And it was just awesome to have that as the first ever time doing that. And I'm actually kind of scared to do more of them because I don't know if they can compare to
right.
how perfect that one was. But yeah, it was amazing. And for me, this is my life. This is my
Hmm.
story. Like, I know it's special, but I lived it, so it doesn't really feel that way. And to be
Yeah.
able to speak to all those people, and that was in a crowd with like a bunch of professional, like amazing speakers. And
Right.
after it was over, I had the most people coming up to me out of anyone that spoke there.
It's
Like, we
amazing.
had the panel of all the people that were like swishing, going up back and forth, and after it, all like the crowd came up and started talking to us, and I had the most people coming up to me out of anyone there,
Wow.
which was insane because like I look up to all these people because they're like actual speakers, and I'm just
Yeah.
me. But like, it's so crazy seeing my story like actually touch people like that, especially live, because I've had people reach out on Instagram. I've had people send me letters just from the show, but seeing it like live, not like somebody else telling my story and seeing my success on the show, but just me telling my story like that and
Yeah.
seeing people's reaction to it, it was crazy. And some of these like parents coming up and just like hugging me and crying because they were so touched by my story. Like, it's insane to be able to touch people that much and to be able to
Yeah.
impact people that much just from my life. Like I'm not telling a fictional story out there.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not making up these inspirational sayings, like saying all these stuff just to get
Right.
people's emotions rallied. Like I'm just telling my actual life. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's crazy to see it impact people that much. It really is.
Wow. Well, it doesn't surprise me that everyone was coming up to you. You really just have I mean, I've heard this from many people who I've already interviewed and talked about you. You just have this way you carry yourself that you just have a good vibe about you. I'm sure you've
Thank
heard
you.
that before, but you really do. You're easy to talk to. I believe we're light, if that makes sense. Like, and your light shines really bright, meaning people are
Hmm.
attracted to that and they want to know more. And
Hopefully.
you really are genuine and authentic in what you talk about, which is beautiful. So, man, I can see you're going to be keynote speaking all over the place with this, and
That's the goal. That's hopefully the next endeavor for me. So we'll see.
I have no doubt. I want to talk about a couple of things I know you're also very committed to and passionate about. Is
Hmm.
just even outside of maybe the ninja, just how important discipline is. And would you talk a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of our listeners, I mean, they want to do certain things in their life, whether it's ninja or something else,
Hmm.
but they struggle or maybe lack at times discipline. Why is that so important? And what does that mean to you, being disciplined?
Yeah, discipline is very important. I think for me, that discipline is that it's the mindset for me. It's that mindset that I've had my whole entire life of whatever it takes. Like if I have that goal and my goal is winning American Ninja Warrior, if I'm not wanting to do something, if I'm waking up and I'm like, oh, this training session is gonna suck, or if I'm on the treadmill at the beginning of my run and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go the whole mile right
Yeah,
now. Like I just think of myself on that tower. I think of myself at the top. I think of myself at the base of the tower, ready to do that rope climb, and I just think like, what is this worth to you? Like
yeah,
I saw this quote like 2 years ago, and at my chalkboard at home, I wrote it at the top of my chalkboard. I don't remember exactly how it was worded. It was something along the lines of sacrifice what you want now for like how is it exactly worded? It was it's basically saying what do you want and what do you want now? Like what's your main goal and what do you want now? Like obviously now I have some donuts in my fridge. Like it would be really nice to have one of those donuts right now, but my end goal,
yeah.
obviously having that donut isn't part of my end goal. It's gonna hold me back a little bit. I think it was sacrifice
Is
what
it
you want
don't
now for what you want
I?
most. There we go. It was what you want most.
Yeah, I just looked it up. I think it's don't sacrifice what you want most for what you want now. Was that it?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
So don't sacrifice what you want most. Like what I want most is to be at the top of that tower, and what I want now,
yeah,
those donuts look very tempting. So yeah, don't sacrifice what you want most for what you want now. That's something that I wrote down on my
yeah,
chalkboard a few years ago, and I don't live at home anymore, so I haven't seen that chalkboard in a while. That's probably why I forgot what the exact
yeah,
wording was. But that
yeah,
quote stood out to me for that. I wrote that down after season 14, coming into season 15. I was like, what I want most is to love this show, is to
yeah.
achieve the success on the show, is to live out my dream. That's what I want most. And what I
Wow.
want now at the time was I was training in Houston and I was thinking, okay, I want to win this right now. Like I'm here to win this. What I wanted most now was, okay, I want this to happen right now. I want this to happen immediately. And I want to win this season. And I think really being able to accept that if this is going to happen, like I know I'm strong enough for it to happen. I know that I can do this eventually. I'm just going to accept that if that's the case, I will at some point. It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be this season. I'm going to
yeah,
enjoy this season. I'm going to enjoy being here. It
yeah,
doesn't have to be this year. And in season 14, that was my mindset. I was like, okay, it has to be right now. I'm doing all this stuff. Like
yeah,
I have to win right now. I have to make this worth it. And coming into season 15, I had that shift where I was like, okay, if I'm going to win it, does it matter when? It just matters that I will. Like
yeah,
I'm here to enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy every single season that I have, and eventually I will win it. So I think discipline plays a huge role in that, because what do you want now? Obviously, for that example, it's not great because I'm still training either way.
yeah,
But like when I'm on that treadmill, when I'm doing those miles, I literally while I'm doing I do a 5K, which is basically 30 minutes on the treadmill.
Yeah.
And I get to the point, the last 10 minutes, I'm struggling. Like my legs do not like being up that long. And
Yeah.
I'm struggling, but it's the cardio. You got to train for
Yeah.
those harder things than what you're going to see on the course.
Yep.
And I'm in those last 10 minutes literally visualizing myself on the course. I completely zone out. I'm still running and I'm not thinking about the treadmill. I'm picturing myself running the courses. I picture
Mm.
exactly what I'm going to do on stage 1, exactly what I'm going to do on stage 2, exactly what I'm going to do on stage 3, and then the last, like, it ends up timing perfectly to where the last like 30 seconds where I'm the most fatigued out of the whole entire run, I'm picturing myself standing at the base of the rope and then jumping and climbing. Like I'm thinking, okay, there's 10 minutes left on this run. This sucks. I don't want to do it. I want to get off right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to think about what I want right now. I'm not going to think about wanting to be done with this. I'm going to think
Yeah.
about doing those courses. I'm going to think about exactly how I'm going to get my way through this course, exactly how I'm going to do this, exactly how I'm going to get my way up the rope. And that's like, I think that was the perfect explanation of that quote. Don't sacrifice what you want
Yeah.
now for what you want most. Or
Totally.
don't sacrifice what you want most for what you want now.
Yeah.
Because what I want most is climbing that tower. What I want now, I hate this run. I don't want to do this anymore. So I
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
in those moments, I don't think about the run anymore. I think about the course. I think about doing that. I think about climbing up the rope. I think about winning the show, because that's what I want most. And what I want now is to not do this run anymore. So instead of
Yeah.
thinking about the run, I think about what is it that I want to do? Why am I doing this? And not only just thinking about, okay, I have 10 minutes left and this is like for the show. It's not just that. Like I literally
Yeah.
visualize in my head me running the courses, me actually doing it. So instead of my thoughts being of the run, my thoughts are literally of doing the obstacles.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not just, okay, I don't want to do this, but winning the show, I gotta train. Like it's not just that. Like I'm quite literally like that is what's in my head, is
Yeah.
doing those obstacles. So I
Wow.
think that's like that was a huge part of my discipline, is just being able to visualize and not
Yeah.
only think why am I doing this, but have the transition be thinking of the show.
Yeah.
So that was
Love
like
it.
that was very interesting for me.
No, very well said. I'm a huge believer on visualizing and how powerful that can be. And it's in those moments when we are struggling, when we really focus and visualize, it makes that last 10 minutes on the treadmill go by a lot faster, right?
It does. It does. The first 20 minutes became the part that sucked the most because the last 10 went by so quick.
Yeah, right. No, that's
Yeah.
beautifully said. Well, Vance, I know you're very committed to giving back to the community and helping, giving back. Talk about that and what that looks like for you, and why is that so important to you?
Yeah, it's very important to me because for me growing up, I had people that I would watch on the show. I had people that were succeeding on the show, and those were the people that I looked up to, but they didn't
Yeah.
have the same struggles that I do.
Yeah.
So they had the same goal that I do. They were achieving winning the show. And that was always the thing that I wanted to do with my life, but they weren't starting from the same place as me, and I didn't really have anybody with the same struggles as me that I looked up to. So
Yeah.
for me, I think giving back is telling my story, and I didn't think that it was originally that at first. I like most people give back with money, most people give back with like things like that, and I think for me, like after telling my story to people, after doing these speeches and seeing how it impacts people, how many people have sent me letters, how many people have
Yeah.
literally like wrote letters, sent them to my gym so that I would be able to see them, and how many people have commented, how many people have messaged me on like Instagram, things like that,
Yeah.
and just how many people are touched by my story. I think for me, going out and telling my story and just getting the word out as much as possible. I know for my mom, one of her main things and why she wants me to do this is to tell the story about getting diagnosed early on. So one of
Yeah.
the things about when I got diagnosed, the earliest that you could get tested for stuff like that was 18 months. And I
Okay.
was actually diagnosed at 17 and a half months, which was a couple weeks before that, because my
Yeah.
mom for months before that was like, okay, we're going to try, like she could tell something was wrong. She was like, I'm not going to wait until he's 18 months old to get him tested for all this stuff. I'm going to try to get all this done now.
Yeah.
And I think the limit was 18 months, and I ended up being a few weeks before that I was finally diagnosed with it. But I think her main thing is like getting the word out for, if you see that something could be wrong, get tested as soon as possible. Like get the word out to like just get the word out as much as you can. And I think that's my main focus right now, is I want to I want to get all these speaking roles. I want to spread the word, not only
Yeah.
to inspire people, but if there are kids struggling with the same stuff, I want to get the word out because cerebral palsy can't get better, but it
Yeah.
can 100% get worse. And the later you're
Yeah.
diagnosed, the longer you go without all this stuff, it can get worse for you. And the earlier you catch it, you can stop it right then. And luckily for me, I stopped it early on. I could have been wheelchair bound. I don't know
Yeah.
how extreme it could have gotten because I was able to get all these things in place from early on. And so I think for me, giving back is really telling my story right now, spreading the word, inspiring all these people. And also, I've done a little bit with my money. My good friend Caleb, he runs the gym that I train at right now, and
Okay.
he timed out on stage 4. He made it to the final rope climb. I beat him by a couple of seconds. He didn't end up getting up in time, and he just had a son. He just started his own
Oh,
family, and he had a very old Toyota Camry, I think it was, and he wanted to upgrade his car to be able to have his son have a nice family car when he was growing
yeah.
up. And
Yeah.
I wrote a check for half of the cost of that car,
Oh, wow.
and
That's awesome.
I ended up winning the $1 million, and he came. I don't know exactly what his time was on it, but he didn't end up getting up there in time. And
Yeah.
when I originally moved to Tampa and right before season 15, I didn't have an apartment. I was wanting to see if the gym was a good fit, and he actually let me into his home. He let me stay with him for like 4 weeks, I think, like almost a month,
Wow. That's
where I was
amazing.
staying at his house, testing out the gym. And because he was willing to give all that to me, he was willing to let me into his own home. I wanted to give back at least a little percentage of what I got to help him out too. So I think my main things right now are just giving back to the people that have helped me, like my parents. I'm eventually gonna give something to them. They've been
Yeah.
supporting me financially for a long
Yeah.
time, so I'm eventually gonna return
Yeah.
the favor. I haven't yet, but yeah, just returning the favor to people
Yeah.
that have helped me along the way, and then just spreading the word and spreading the message and trying to help as many people get diagnosed early on, as many people stop it early on, and even the people that don't have it. Like I've had people that have nothing to do with CP, nothing to do with any of that, just parents with kids that have been inspired just by me in general, and even people like that, just getting the word out and inspiring all these people is definitely the way that I'm trying to give back right now.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's cool that you're giving back. And again, that's why I think people really gravitate towards you because you just have that big heart. And I can feel it just
Thank
sitting
you.
here talking to you. I've watched a million of your interviews and stuff and you do, like I said earlier, you just have this really cool vibe about you. And
Thank you.
that is a gift you have. Not only you're great on the ninja course, but you're great everywhere else. So we're blessed to have you in our lives. And I love what you're doing, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm no Daniel Gill, but I'm trying my best.
Well, we're all trying to be like Daniel,
Yeah.
including me. No, you're right there with him, man. But I mean, God, the people I've talked to already, just and even people obviously at NBC Sports, they're just freaking amazing. And just
Yeah.
American Ninja Warrior. Honestly, I don't care who you are. If you're having a down day, just watch that on TV, and you'll
Yeah.
feel uplifted after that show. I mean, I don't care who you are. Even if you don't
Yeah.
maybe are into that, every time I watch it, I walk away from there going, man, I feel so much better about myself.
Yeah, even the people that don't win it, some of them have insane
Yeah,
stories, and even just
right.
being on the course for a lot of those people is already an insane accomplishment.
For
So the
sure.
show is definitely a great one to watch if you want to be inspired.
Yeah. Well, Vance, if there's someone listening to your voice right now and they're in a bad place and they're struggling and they are just being overwhelmed with their own challenges, what advice would you give that one person right now who's listening to you?
Yeah, I know this is way overstated. I know everyone says this, but don't give up. Like, I know that's way blown out of proportion. Everybody tries to say it, but for me,
Yeah.
there were so many chances for me to give up. Like, when I was first diagnosed with cerebral palsy, when I was first told that I would never be able to walk with the braces, I could have given up right then. I could have accepted my fate and I could have not done anything with my life. I could have still been in the braces to this day, and I could have never done any of the things that I've done today. And like in season 14, where I came off of 2 perfect seasons and then an almost perfect season, I came in expecting to win and I didn't hit a single buzzer. My gym had just shut down. I had just moved to Houston, and I felt like there's no way I can come back from this, because was that gym the reason that I was achieving this success? Was that environment the only reason that I did what I did? Because I'm
Yeah.
stronger this year and I didn't come close. I wanted to give up right then, honestly.
Yeah.
I felt discouraged. I was debating, is this possible for me? And that was after already having been one of the most successful athletes in the sport. I was already thinking, okay, is this a possibility for me? Is this done? Is it over? And there were so many times in that where I wanted to give up, so many
Yeah.
times where I didn't want to keep going. And actually, my mom ended up being the one that forced me to move down to Florida, because I was training in Houston and it didn't work out, so I moved back home for a few months. And my mom was
Okay.
like, "Okay, I'm done with this. You're getting out of the house. You're moving down to Florida. You're gonna start training again." And I was like, "Okay." Like, I didn't want to do it, but my mom was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, you're moving out. Go
Yeah.
somewhere else. Go do
Yeah.
this." And I could have easily given up right then. I wanted to give up then. Like, it was very
Yeah.
hard to come back from that. It was very hard to want to keep going after that. But if I stopped right then, the next season is the one that I won. Like,
Wow.
it wasn't just that I came back and it took like
Yeah.
multiple years of grinding and then eventually I
Amazing.
did it. It was the next season.
Whoa.
Like, I came back from not a single buzzer to the next season hitting every single one and winning the $1 million. Like,
It's amazing.
it can't be a bigger shift from that. And
Right?
I could have given up at the start. I could have given up the
Yeah.
second I was diagnosed. I could have given up when it felt like everything was falling apart. I lost my gym. I lost my friends. I lost the show. I didn't hit a single buzzer. I lost the one thing that I was good at. And it would have been so easy to stop right there. But that one time that I came back ended up meaning the next year I was able to do it. So I know that's way overstated. Everybody says don't give up. And I know it can get annoying to hear that at times, but for me, that really has been, it has been true, because there were so many chances that I could have given up. There were so many different times where that would have been the easy option. It would have been understandable even to give up right then.
Yeah.
Like, not only an easy option, but if I did give up when I was diagnosed, nobody would have blamed me for that.
Right.
Like, nobody would have been like, "Oh,
Totally.
you could have gotten out of those braces. That wouldn't have happened."
Yeah.
Like, nobody would have judged me for doing that. It would have been the easy option. It would have been an acceptable option, but it's not the best one. Like, the
Yeah.
best one was fighting for that. The best one was still going and eventually achieving this. So I'm very glad that I didn't give up. And not only am I glad I didn't give up, I can look back on season 14, which sucked at the time. Like, at
Uh-huh.
the time, I was like, my life's falling apart. What is this? I have
Yeah.
nothing anymore. But after season 15, I look back and I'm like, I'm glad that happened. Not only am I glad that I didn't give up and kept going, I'm glad that that failure happened, because, like, if I won 2 seasons as junior, almost won season 13, came back and won season 14, everybody would be like, okay, cool. Like, that's the
Yeah.
guy that wins everything.
Yeah.
But since I had that complete failure, since I didn't hit a single buzzer, everybody was like, wow, can he come back and do this? And then the fact that I like had those perfect seasons, everybody thought that I was done. And then I came back and won the next season. Like, that just makes it so much cooler. Like,
Right.
it's not just like,
Man.
okay, here's the guy that wins everything. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
can he come back from this? And then he did. Everybody's like, whoa, that was like the biggest comeback of all time right there. Like, it made the story
Yeah.
that much cooler. So
No,
I
that's
think definitely don't give up is the one
Yep.
thing that I can say.
I love it. And it really hits hard and true with you, because you've lived that. And just not only
Yeah.
that, but then dealing with what happened when you were younger and diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and how you've overcame that, having people in your life. I'm a huge believer, Vance, that life happens for us.
Mhm.
And when I hear your story and I look at all the things you've been through up until this very moment, even all these things, all the challenges led to you being the best version of you. And whether you're a champion or not, it's more about, I look at you and I see just this great person.
Thank
And that's what inspires me the most about you. I love that you're champion. Congrats. That's amazing. But more importantly, it's the good you are and the good you're putting out into the world. That really inspires me, because I really believe I'm where I'm at because I'm standing on shoulders of giants. And I'm standing on your shoulders for a minute right now, and I just want you to know that. And thanks for
Thank you.
inspiring me.
Of course. Yeah, thank you for that.
You bet. Well, if someone wants to reach out to you, Vance, and they want to follow you and follow your journey over this next season that's already going. And what's the best way for them to reach out and maybe ask you a question or follow what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram at Vance_Walker_ANW. So that's where I'm mostly at. So.
Okay. Great. And I'll put that in the show notes and they can link right to it when we go live with this. So that would be great. But yeah, right. This has been such a great interview. You're easy to talk to. This was easy. I mean, this was my blessing. I get to sit here and just listen and soak this in. And I can't wait for my listeners and followers to listen to your amazing story. I'll be rooting for you, my friend, in the current season that you find yourself in. And please stay in touch. If you're ever out in Utah, I'd love you to come speak to our clients here at Wasatch Recovery, man. They could really use your inspiring story, but I'm here. You got a friend out here where I'm at, so just so you know that.
All right. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
You bet, man. Thanks for joining us and for inspiring all of us at this moment. So there you go, folks. I told you you're in for a treat today. Vance Walker. Please follow him on Instagram. You can just click the link in the show notes there. You will be inspired by just not only what he does on the ninja course, but also what he does in life. And if you think you can't overcome something or whatever you find yourself in, Vance is the example. And I love what he said, just don't ever give up. And he's the perfect example of what happens when you don't give up. So love you guys. Again, thanks to my sponsors. I couldn't do it without you guys. It means the world to me. Thanks to NBC Sports and for putting out great content to inspire the world. And Vance, love you. You take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.